They thought it was just another quiet night. But fate had other plans, starting with a sound in the dark and ending with something no one could explain. That night, in the quiet town of Maple Hollow, Colorado, the cold settled in like any other. Snow flurries danced in the headlights as Michael Green, a high school guidance counselor, drove slowly down the winding road that led home. In the passenger seat sat his wife, Emily, a pottery instructor at the local art center. Neither of them spoke. It wasn't the kind of silence that came from boredom or distraction. It was the kind born of old wounds, of questions they never wanted to answer, of truths too painful to speak. They had just left a small dinner party at a colleague's house. The evening had been pleasant enough, warm food, soft jazz playing in the background, polite laughter over shared memories. That was until someone asked that question. "So, any baby news yet?" It had come out casually with a friendly smile, never meant to hurt. But the effect was immediate. Michael chuckled lightly, brushing it off with his go-to line. "Maybe we'll start with a dog first." Laughter followed. The conversation moved on, but the wound reopened. The truth was something they had carried for years, since before their wedding. Doctors, diagnoses, decisions, words like unexplained infertility and low success rate. A painful reality easier to tuck away than explain. Michael glanced sideways. Emily's face was turned toward the window, eyes blank, reflecting the blur of snowy streetlights. She hadn't said a word since they got in the car. As they turned onto their street, the quiet wasn't just quiet anymore. It felt like something holding its breath, waiting. The tires crunched softly against the thin layer of snow as Michael eased the car into their driveway. The streetlights flickered above them, casting long shadows over their modest front yard. Everything looked the same as it always did, quiet, still, undisturbed. But something felt different. Emily moved slowly, reaching for her seatbelt. But before she could unbuckle, she paused, her brow furrowed. "Did you hear that?" she whispered. Michael, halfway out of the driver's seat, stopped. "Hear what?" She held up a hand, eyes scanning the darkness just beyond the windshield. "Shh! Just listen." And then they both heard it. A faint, trembling whimper. At first it was so soft it could have been mistaken for wind, brushing past a cracked window. But there it was again, a low, pitiful sound, coming from somewhere near the side of the house. Michael quietly shut the car door. Together they stepped into the cold, following the sound toward the alley that ran behind their house. The air back there was sharper, filled with the scent of damp leaves, old trash, and something else. Something alive. Michael pulled out his phone and switched on the flashlight. The narrow beam sliced through the darkness, revealing a row of trash bins and a few scattered bags. Then finally, the light landed on a shape. Curled up between two bins was a dog, a German shepherd. The animal looked fragile, its ribs pressed sharply against patchy fur. One of its front legs hung at an awkward angle. Its amber eyes glowed in the light, wide with fear, but it didn't growl, didn't bark. It just stared. "Oh, sweetheart," Emily breathed, crouching slowly. "Careful," Michael warned. "He might be aggressive." But she didn't back away. Her voice softened, full of instinct and compassion. "No, he's just scared." Emily moved slowly, as if every step might startle the fragile creature. The dog didn't move, but its eyes tracked her every motion, wide, wet, waiting for the worst. She kept her voice low and steady, the same tone she used when her pottery students cracked their work and cried in frustration. "It's okay," she murmured. "You're not alone now." Michael stood back, uncertain. He didn't distrust the dog, but he didn't trust it either. That kind of fear could turn fast. "Let me try something," he said, jogging back to the car. A minute later, he returned with a piece of sausage wrapped in foil from the dinner party. He crouched and slowly unwrapped it. The dog sniffed the air, ears twitching. Hunger overpowered fear. With hesitant steps, it crept forward and took the food gently from Michael's outstretched hand. They didn't say it aloud, but something passed between the three of them in that moment. An unspoken agreement. This wasn't just about kindness, it felt like the beginning of something they couldn't name yet. Back inside, Emily laid an old fleece blanket near the fireplace. Michael filled a bowl with water and another with leftover rice and chicken. The dog, now lying on the blanket, didn't close his eyes. His body remained tight, alert. His ears flicked at every creak in the floorboards, every passing car outside. Emily sat cross-legged a few feet away, watching him. "We should give him a name," she whispered, mostly to herself. Michael glanced over from the kitchen. "Rusty? Let's name him Rusty." Outside, the wind howled through the trees, but inside the fire glowed soft and steady, and for the first time in a long time, there was a new presence in their home, a broken dog who somehow made the silence feel less lonely. Sometime deep into the night, Emily stirred in her sleep. At first, it was just a faint noise, barely louder than the ticking of the wall clock. Then it came again, a light scraping sound, nails on hardwood. She sat up slowly, eyes adjusting to the darkness of their bedroom. "Michael," she whispered, nudging his shoulder. "He's pacing." Michael groaned, still tangled in half-sleep. "The dog?" Emily nodded, already slipping into slippers. "Something's wrong." They crept into the hallway. The living room lamp still glowed softly where they'd left it, but the blanket near the fireplace was empty, the water bowl untouched. "Rusty?" Emily called gently. Then a soft creak. The front door stood slightly ajar, letting in a ribbon of cold air. "He's gone," Michael said, voice sharp with disbelief. "I thought I closed it." Without another word, they both stepped outside, barefoot, the wooden porch cold beneath their soles. Snowflakes drifted lazily from the sky. The street was empty, quiet in a way that felt eerie, unnatural. Emily's heart sank. Then came the sound, quick, light footsteps, not panicked but determined. From under the shadow of the nearest street lamp, Rusty appeared, trotting. But he wasn't alone. In his jaws, gently held, was a bundle wrapped in what looked like a dirty blue towel. Michael blinked in confusion. "Is that—" Rusty approached carefully and laid the bundle down at Emily's feet. She knelt instinctively. The towel twitched. A faint cry rose up, barely audible, but unmistakably human. Emily's breath caught. Her hands trembled as she peeled the towel open. A newborn, red-faced, eyes sealed shut, body quivering with each tiny, strained sob. Blood matted his hair. His skin was ice-cold. "Oh, my God," she gasped, scooping him into her arms. "Michael, he's freezing. He's a baby. He's alive." Michael stood paralyzed. The shock, the surrealness of it all, anchored him in place. Rusty stood beside them, unmoving. His eyes never left the child. Emily held the baby close, instinct overriding everything else. The small bundle barely stirred, his cries weak and raw. She didn't need medical training to know he was in danger. Michael snapped out of his daze. "We need to call 911, now!" His hands trembled as he fumbled for his phone. Emily didn't take her eyes off the baby, her voice a soft chant. "It's okay, you're safe now. Stay with me, little one." Michael relayed their address to the dispatcher, trying to keep his voice level, but emotion cracked through. "It's a newborn." Someone left him outside. The dog found him. Even saying it aloud didn't make it feel any more real. Within minutes, the still night was shattered by the wail of sirens. Red and blue lights danced across the snow-covered yard as an ambulance pulled up to the curb. A police cruiser followed. Emily sat on the couch, cradling the baby as if she could will him warm. A paramedic knelt before her. "You did the right thing," he said gently. "We've got him now." Reluctantly, she handed the baby over, her arms suddenly aching with the absence. Michael tried to explain everything to the officer, how the dog just appeared, how he left and came back, how he brought them a baby. The officer glanced at Rusty, now lying near the fireplace, his body tense but calm, his eyes never leaving the child. "He hasn't taken his eyes off the baby since," Emily said softly. The officer knelt beside Rusty. "Some protector you've got." Rusty didn't react to the compliment. He just kept watching. No one had answers, only questions that hung in the room like fog. But in the middle of all that uncertainty, one thing was clear. This baby was never meant to be found. And yet, somehow, against all odds, against the dark, he had been, by a dog who refused to look away. They shouldn't have trusted anyone. But they did. The next few days passed in a haze. The baby, now stable and warm in a neonatal unit at the county hospital, was listed as infant boy Doe. No name, no birth certificate, no known family. But the investigation moved quickly. On the third day, police traced a lead from a nearby clinic. A young woman had come in the week before, complaining of abdominal pain and refusing a full examination. A neighbor had reported concern, said the woman had been visibly pregnant, and now wasn't. She hadn't said anything, just kept to herself, even more than usual. Her name was Lena Ramirez, 25 years old, night shift packer at a local warehouse, single mother of 2 small children, no husband, no steady partner, and no one to turn to. When detectives questioned her, she didn't deny anything. She didn't even try to explain it away. "I didn't know what else to do," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I couldn't afford another baby. I could barely afford the 2 I already have." She had hidden the pregnancy from everyone, family, co-workers, even the children she tucked into bed each night. When labor came early, she gave birth alone in her apartment bathroom. She wrapped the baby in a towel, fed him once, then waited until he was asleep and carried him 2 blocks away in the dead of night. "I thought maybe someone would find him, or maybe they wouldn't," she admitted, eyes dull with exhaustion. "I just couldn't be his mother." The officers didn't respond right away. It was easy to be angry, easy to feel outrage, but the truth was heavier than blame. Lena wasn't a monster. She was just broken. She was arrested on charges of child endangerment and abandonment. Her 2 other children were placed temporarily in the care of her parents. And somewhere across town, in a home still echoing with the faint cries of a child they hadn't known a week ago, Michael and Emily sat in silence, thinking not just of the baby, but of the mother who couldn't hold on. Days went by, but Emily couldn't shake the image of the baby from her mind. His tiny cries still echoed in her ears. The way he trembled in her arms that night, barely clinging to warmth, to life, it replayed over and over, like a loop that refused to end. She found herself folding laundry more slowly, standing longer in the doorway of the room they had once painted yellow. The nursery had sat untouched for years. At first, it had been filled with soft blankets and picture books, tiny shoes lined up on a shelf, hope hanging in every corner. Then came the test results, the consultations, the grief. One by one, they had packed the items away, but they never took the room apart completely. They couldn't. Michael noticed the change in her. She was quieter, more careful with things. One evening, he found her sitting on the nursery floor holding a knitted baby hat from a box she hadn't opened in years. "You've been thinking about him," he said softly. Emily looked up, eyes rimmed with emotion. Every second said yes. Michael didn't say anything for a while. He sat beside her. The silence wasn't heavy this time, just full of things that didn't need to be spoken. Then, one morning, over lukewarm coffee, Emily broke the quiet. "I think we should try," she said, her voice steady. "I want to adopt him." Michael looked at her, blinking. "You mean the baby?" She nodded slowly. "Noah," she whispered. "I know it's fast, but I think he's meant to be ours." He hesitated. What if he has medical issues? What if it's more than we're ready for? Emily met his eyes. He was left to die. And yet somehow fate put him in my arms. I don't need more signs. I just need to say yes. Michael exhaled. A faint smile crept into the corners of his mouth. Then let's make the call. 3 weeks later, on a cold Tuesday morning, Michael and Emily stood outside the Maple County Courthouse. Emily clutched her scarf tighter, her hands trembling, not from the cold, but from everything this moment meant. Inside those walls, a judge sat with a thin file on his desk, a file that now held their future. It took less than 10 minutes. The judge asked a few questions about their employment, their home, and why they wanted to adopt. Emily answered without hesitation. Michael's voice cracked only once when he said, "Because we've waited a long time to love a child who needs us." Then, with the stamp of a pen and a quiet smile, it became official. He was no longer infant boy Doe. He was Noah Ramirez Green. Emily cried openly as she held the final paperwork, her arms wrapped around the folder like it was something holy. Michael pulled her into a hug, the two of them frozen beneath the courthouse steps, as if afraid that moving might somehow undo the moment. That afternoon they brought Noah home. He had grown stronger. His cheeks were fuller, his cries louder. He blinked up at the world as they carried him through the front door, wrapped in a soft blue blanket. Rusty was already waiting. He didn't bark. He didn't rush. He simply walked up to the baby carrier and sat down. Then, slowly, he pressed his nose to Noah's tiny feet. Michael chuckled. "He's claiming him." Emily smiled through her tears. They belonged to each other. That evening, they lit a single candle on the mantel. Next to it, a new photo of the three of them together under a crisp winter sky. Above the fireplace hung a simple wooden plaque, "Rusty, Guardian of Miracles." The house was no longer quiet. It was alive with soft cries, late-night feedings, and the gentle breath of something long hoped for, finally finding its way home. Weeks later, on a quiet evening, brushed with the chill of early spring, Michael and Emily sat together on the porch swing. Emily cradled Noah in her arms, his tiny chest rising and falling in sleep. Rusty lay curled at their feet, head resting between his paws, eyes closed, but still alert, always listening. The stars above were soft and steady, like they'd been watching the whole time. "Do you ever think," Emily whispered, "how none of this would have happened if we hadn't gone to that dinner?" Michael smiled faintly. "Or if I hadn't made that stupid joke about getting a dog?" They laughed quietly, the kind of laughter that comes only after you've cried, healed, and found something worth keeping. Rusty shifted slightly, as if he understood. They didn't have all the answers. They never would. But in the strange, painful, beautiful way life had unfolded, this family had been formed, not by blood, but by grace. Sometimes a child doesn't come through the front door. Sometimes he arrives in a towel, in the mouth of a dog, under a sky full of stars. And sometimes, that's exactly how a miracle finds its way home. If this tale moved you, if you felt the tension, the heartbreak, and the triumph, please support our channel by hitting the like button and subscribing. Your support means the world to us and helps us bring more thrilling, emotional, and inspiring stories your way. Leave a comment below and let us know what you think. Do you believe dogs have an extraordinary sixth sense? Share your thoughts and personal stories with us. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.